Welcome to This Explainer. Look, if you're a focused learner, someone who actually loves chasing down new goals, you know the exact feeling I'm talking about. The starting line, it's amazing. We've all been there, right? You buy the fresh running shoes, you map out that brilliant business plan, you outline the next great novel. Starting is just intoxicating. But then, give it a few weeks and what happens? If you're like the rest of us, that initial burst of energy just vanishes. The finish line starts looking like an absolute mirage. So today we're unpacking exactly why we struggle so much to finish what we start, and far more importantly, the totally counterintuitive playbook we can use to actually change that. Because, get this, 92% of New Year's resolutions fail. 92%, that is a staggering number. Every single January, millions of us start with all this massive hype and hope, but only 8% actually cross the finish line. To put that into perspective, you literally have the exact same 8% chance of getting accepted into Juilliard to become a professional ballerina as you do of just finishing your own personal goal. Crazy, right? So what's going on here? Are we just lazy? Do we simply not care enough? Well, the answer actually lies in the research from Jon Acuff's fantastic book, Finish. Give yourself the gift of done. What his findings show is that the classic shiny-toothed internet guru advice, you know the stuff, hustle harder, grind 24/7, sleep when you're dead. That is exactly what's sabotaging us. Trying harder isn't the solution at all. Actually, it's a huge part of the problem. So we need a totally different approach. Here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll meet the real villain. Then, how to survive the day after perfect. Third, why you should cut your goal in half. Fourth, choosing what to bomb. And finally, making it fun. Let's get right into it. Section 1. Meet the real villain. Perfectionism. Listen, the villain keeping you from your goals is not laziness, it is perfectionism, and we really need to redefine what that word means. It is not some noble pursuit of excellence, okay? It is a toxic all-or-nothing trap. It's that tiny, nagging voice insisting that if a project isn't flawless right out of the gate, it's just a complete failure. Acuff surveyed 1,000 people and found something wild. 97% of them admitted they've refused to even write down an idea because they instantly judged it as not good enough. Perfectionism literally forces you to pre-quit before you even take step 1. Look at the stark contrast here between what perfectionism demands and what reality actually requires. Perfectionism screams at you to hustle harder and be flawless, but the incredibly relieving scientifically backed truth, doing something imperfectly is not going to kill you. The opposite of perfectionism isn't failure. The opposite of perfectionism is finished, and to get to finished, you have got to be willing to move forward imperfectly. Which brings us to Section 2, survive the day after perfect, the most dangerous day. And that day, it's day 2. Yep, day 2 is notoriously the biggest drop-off point for anyone setting a goal. Why? Because imperfection shows up fast, really fast. You sit down at your desk on a Monday morning all fired up, and by 9 a.m. you're already behind schedule. That illusion of a flawless streak, it shatters almost instantly. And right on cue, perfectionism feeds you a massive lie. Just quit if it isn't perfect. Acuff shares this hilarious personal story about this. He decided to get super serious about his diet, so he went to Costco and bought a literal pallet of black beans to eat for breakfast every single day. For 12 days, he had a flawless streak. Boom, perfect. But on day 13, he goes on a business trip without his traveling beans. He missed one day. And you know what he did? He quit the whole diet. He fell right into the might as well trap. Like, oh, I messed up breakfast, might as well just eat a terrible lunch and a terrible dinner. We tend to treat a missed day like a catastrophic train derailment. But in reality, a missed day is just a bump in a bumper car. You just steer the wheel and get back on the track. All right, rule number 3, cut your goal in half, which is all about dialing back our optimism. Have you ever stopped to wonder why we set ourselves up for that day 2 failure in the first place? It really comes down to the planning fallacy. It's this psychological phenomenon where we have this massive optimism bias, and we completely, totally underestimate the actual time and effort a task is going to take. Acuff tells the story of a guy who didn't run, barely swam, and absolutely never biked outdoors. Out of nowhere, he decides his new goal is to train for a 70.3-mile Ironman triathlon. He buys all the expensive gear, plans this grueling, extreme schedule, and never goes to the gym again. The sheer, overwhelming size of the goal completely paralyzed him. When we dream too big at the starting line, we pretty much curse our finish line. So how do we fix this? Here is your actionable antidote. Step 1, cut your goal in half. Literally. If your goal was to lose 10 pounds, make it 5. If you wanted to read 4 books this month, make it 2. Now, I know what you're thinking. Sometimes you just can't logically cut a goal in half. Like if you're trying to pay off $50,000 in credit card debt, you can't just pretend half of it doesn't exist. In that case, you use step 2. Double the timeline. Give yourself twice as much time to pay it off. Now, I know this feels like a cheat, doesn't it? It feels like you're just letting yourself off the hook. But let's look at what the actual research says. The crucial number here is 63%. Researchers analyzed a 30-day goal-setting challenge, and they found that people who deliberately cut their goals in half saw a 63% increase in their performance success. 63. By making the goal genuinely attainable, they didn't just throw in the towel when things got a little messy. Instead, they secured these great early victories, which gave them the momentum to keep going and actually finish what they started. Let's move to section 4. Choose what to bomb. Dropping balls on purpose. Look, to finish a goal, you have to feed it your most valuable resource, your time. And you don't just magically give time to a new goal, you have to actively take it from somewhere else. Enter this brilliant concept called strategic incompetence. This simply means deciding ahead of time which activities in your life you are going to deliberately be bad at. Acuff has this fantastic example where he let his front lawn turn into an absolute chaotic weed laboratory. Why would he do that? Because surviving raising his toddlers was a much, much higher priority. The grass, it just didn't matter. Perfectionism completely lies to us here. It whispers, hey, you can do it all. You can totally add this massive new goal to your life without sacrificing a single thing. And then when we inevitably drop a ball, we feel this crushing shame and just quit the new goal entirely. But reality dictates that to be truly good at one thing, you kind of have to be bad at another. Strategic incompetence removes all that shame. When you make the active choice to put a ball down on purpose before the game even starts, you are not failing, you're strategizing. To put that into perspective, here are some real-world things you can intentionally bomb to clear up your schedule without an ounce of guilt. You might choose to bomb keeping up with that latest 40-hour prestige TV drama. You might bomb maintaining your streaks on Snapchat or scrolling Instagram. You could completely abandon the myth of inbox zero, ignore having a perfectly manicured lawn, or swap out those elaborate home-cooked family dinners for hot dogs or pizza rolls during a crazy busy week. Choose your sacrifices up front and buy back the time you actually need to cross your finish line. And finally, rule number 5, make it fun, the secret fuel for finishing. We have this weird idea that goals have to be difficult and completely joyless for them to really count. Acuff actually wanted to learn how to play table tennis. So did he buy a ping pong table and just mess around with his buddies in the garage? Nope, that would be way too fun. Instead, he hired an elderly sensei, met him in a locked college student union lobby, and spent hours just hitting a ball against a giant mural of a lion, without an actual table. He was absolutely miserable, so naturally, he quit after like 4 lessons. When you suck the joy out of a goal, you absolutely guarantee you aren't going to finish it. It turns out, fun is a highly critical metric. Making a goal enjoyable isn't just some fluffy, feel-good self-help advice. It's backed by hard data. Studies actually show that when people deliberately choose a goal they find fun, their satisfaction jumps by 31%, and their actual measurable performance increases by an incredible 46%. Fun is literally the secret fuel that powers you past perfectionism's roadblocks. But keep in mind, fun looks entirely different depending on how your brain is wired. You've got to figure out your own specific flavor of motivation here. Some of us totally thrive on reward motivation. That's the thrill of approaching a prize, like visualizing that very first sale in your new online business. But others, they run on avoidance motivation. They find their energy in dodging an outcome they don't want, like the adrenaline rush of beating a super tight deadline, or practicing hard just so they don't bomb a public speech. Figure out what actually gets you moving and inject that specific type of fun into your everyday process. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a challenge. Finishing is not some flawless streak of excellence. It's a messy, imperfect, and honestly sometimes chaotic process of just moving forward on the days when absolutely everything goes wrong. You have to cut your optimism in half, strategically let a few balls drop, and make sure you are having some fun along the way. Leave the perfectionism behind you. The only real question left is, what will you imperfectly finish today? Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll catch you next time as we dive into another awesome topic.